And here's somebody else who's despicable, Katie Britt. So Katie Britt did an interview on Fox yesterday, and she's saying, if we want accountability, because we want to make sure this tragedy doesn't happen like this again, we must have Trump Derangement Syndrome. This is what Katie Britt said yesterday.
You know, and I think it shows that Trump Derangement Syndrome is real when you take such a tragedy and a terrible moment like this and you don't want to do anything but turn it into something for your own political gain. You know, my daughter is at camp right now. And I know that there are parents out there that are counting down the days until they pick up their child. And there are also parents that are clinging to the fact that they have another day with their child. And we've got to be human beings, Kellyanne. Not everything has to be political. There will be time for us to figure out how we can do better and do more and prevent these tragedies in the future. And what they don't realize is their toxicity is not normal. And it is not something that we should tolerate in the United States of America.
It's so unbecoming
we got to
for
come
public
together.
officials, definitely.
And now is the time.
And speaking,
we have to come together. Well, here's my question to Katie Britt, who, by the way, suffers from TFS. Anybody who knows my show knows what that means. Katie Britt was one of the first people to blame Gavin Newsom for these fires in California. Katie Britt was one of the first people to attack Joe Biden when we had these fires in Hawaii. Katie Britt makes it political. Every single time any undocumented immigrant commits a crime in this country, she blames Joe Biden for it. But if an undocumented immigrant commits a crime under Donald Trump, you won't hear her speak a word. Every single word out of Katie Britt's mouth when there is a tragedy that takes place in this country is political, blaming Democrats and Joe Biden. But now all of a sudden, Katie Britt is going on national television saying that we must have Trump Derangement Syndrome if we criticize the Trump administration for gutting the NOAA. We must have Trump Derangement Syndrome if we criticize Governor Abbott or MAGA Republicans in general for not doing more to warn these families of these floods that were coming here, all these innocent people that lost their lives. So we must have Trump Derangement Syndrome. So what should we call you when you blame Gavin Newsom for fires?
She seems kind of deranged herself.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would use the word derangement, because it seems like she wants us to focus on the positivity and the people who still picked up their children, and she's making it totally political while saying it shouldn't be political. And I think that they're probably going to face a fairly large lawsuit, possibly the government and the state of Texas. And I think people are upset. And I think that the truth is easy on this one. This is not something that...
And Kristi Noem lied, too, by the way. In holding a press conference the other day, she said that Donald Trump is enhancing the weather service systems and the technology. By the way, we learned that that was a lie. There is no evidence to prove that, and she's lying once again. I know that won't shock many of you. Katie Britt is despicable.
But are MAGAs getting tired of the lies? That's the real question.
No, I think a lot of them aren't.
Until they start to move off the center with Trump,
no.
So they start to listen to common sense.
Leonard, I don't think they are.
And look at you. You go in there and you speak truth and you bring up some facts. And what do? They get angry. They use the F word. They start to talk over you. You allowed Jack to speak when you're on Piers Morgan, but every time you spoke, he was speaking while you were speaking.
All the time.
They cannot stand. And I have friends and family that do this. They cannot stand to hear factual evidence put out in front of them. And the more you do, instead of them moving and saying, oh, that kind of makes sense, what they do is they get mad.
Right.
And then they don't want to talk to you, and then they want to call you names. And if they have to, they'll just cut the communication.
That's what happened yesterday, and that's when you know you've won the argument. At the same time, it's warranted. If somebody makes it personal with me, I'm going to make it personal with them. But Katie Britt is despicable. Governor Abbott is despicable. There needs to be accountability. It doesn't mean we have Trump Derangement Syndrome. It means that we want accountability. You guys always seem to make it political when it comes to everything, just like you guys want the Epstein file to be released. But then all of a sudden when Dear Orange
What
Leader...
Epstein file?
Yeah, exactly. The list must have disappeared. We know that Donald Trump and this administration and DOJ gutted the NOAA.
Correct.
We know that at least 800 people have lost their jobs.
Yes.
We also know that there are former employees that are saying this absolutely played a role. These families didn't get the warnings that maybe they would have had if these employees were still put in place, and they made cuts, and because of those cuts, I believe people lost their lives. And there's fair criticism to be put all around. So with that being said, as you know, MAGA Republicans are the first to blame Gavin Newsom for the fires in California. They were the first to blame Joe Biden for the fires in Hawaii. Why isn't Joe Biden out there? They're the first to blame any Democrat for anything, a hangnail. But now we're being told we're the losers. That's right. According to Governor Abbott, Greg Abbott, as I like to call him, Governor Abhole, who I believe is a despicable human being, a reporter asked him yesterday, Leonard, about accountability. And I want you to listen to the despicable answer he gave. Keep in mind, this is knowing that over 100 people have lost their lives, sadly, a good portion of them children. And Governor Abbott starts talking about football. How
be addressed. You ask, I'm going to use your words. Who's to blame? Know this. That's the word choice of losers. Let me explain one thing about Texas. And that is, Texas, every square inch of our state, cares about football. You could be in Hunt, Texas, Huntsville, Texas, Houston, Texas, any size community, they care about football. High school, Friday night lights, college football, or pro. And know this, every football team makes mistakes. The losing teams are the ones that try to point out who's to blame. The championship teams are the ones that say, don't worry about it, man, we got this. We're going to make sure that we go score again, that we're going to win this game.
Hey, dummy, this is not a football game. This is not a sports contest where a football team loses a game and says, hey, let's do better in the next one. This isn't a game, you imbecile. These are children that have lost their lives that will never come back. These are families that are broken forever. All the funerals that are going to be taking place in the next week or two. Young children, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. And you have the audacity to compare this to a football game.
Not a good time for politics.
A high school football team losing a football game?
Can I point out a couple of other things? So
Yeah.
the National Weather Service funding was pulled, and by their own admission, they're on a skeleton crew, so there was no early warning system. Also, the FEMA, I think $17 million was pulled from FEMA. Does that sound correct? Mm-hmm. And so FEMA doesn't have the resources. Trump said, well, we're going to leave it up to the governors. One governor should be able to ask the other governor for some help. And then on top of that, maybe people know this, maybe they don't. But in April, the legislature for the state of Texas had a chance to get to agree to $500 million for early warning system and for National Weather Service, and they all voted against it because they didn't want to spend the money.
And here's something.
So whose fault is it?
And you're right. And here's something that is even worse. And if you don't think that Governor Abbott is a bad guy, I would say this. The day of the Uvalde school massacre, Governor Abbott had a campaign event where he was raising money. He refused to cancel the event. And they hadn't even counted the bodies in that classroom, and Governor Abbott was counting the money that he was making in a fundraiser. That's the kind of person Governor Abbott is. He's a horrific human being. So should we be surprised that Governor Abbott is now calling us losers for wanting accountability, which I'm sure the families want accountability in their grief, and he's comparing it to a football game? And it's not the job of politicians to be praying. You want to go home and pray, you go ahead and do that. But it's the job of elected officials and politicians to act, to be lawmakers, to actually help people, to give aid to people. But if you ask Mike Johnson about the Texas floods, what does he want everybody to do? Pray. Have a listen to this.
State and federal resources have just poured into that area. Is there anything more that can be done congressionally, legislatively to help these folks?
In a moment like this, we feel just as helpless as everyone else does. I've talked to my colleagues there in Texas, Chip Roy and August Pfluger, whose families, that's Chip's district. August's daughters were at the camp. We also had Betty Carter of Georgia, had grandchildren there. It touches so many families, and all we know to do at this moment is pray. Every available resource has been deployed. The president, of course, is dialed in and watching this develop moment by moment as we are, and we'll handle supplemental funding requests as they come in, but right now they're still trying to do rescue and recovery, and our hearts go out to all of them.
Interesting, isn't it, when a catastrophic event happens, why is it always MAGA Republicans that want to talk about praying? Well, guess what? If you want to pray, you go ahead and pray. Hey, dummy, you're a lawmaker. You're supposed to act. You guys are the ones that want to get rid of FEMA. You guys are the ones with Doge that cut the NOAA. Over 800 employees were either forced into retirement, resigned, fired, you name it. And we want to hear from you telling us to pray? No, that's for the pastors. The victims' families and friends, if they want to pray, let them pray. That's not for you to tell us to do. Your job is to act and help. And every single time there is a tragedy, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. But Republicans don't do anything. In fact, they want to take away benefits. And make no mistake about it, the benefits that are being taken away from FEMA to help victims are going into crocodile Alcatraz, alligator Alcatraz. So many of these people that are nonviolent criminals, by the way. That's where they're allocating these funds. They want to ban books, and they want to put all these funds towards alligator Alcatraz instead of helping these families that have lost loved ones. And we got to hear from Ted Cruz talk about empathy, which he has none. We got to hear from Greg Abbott, who cared more about making money off of his fundraising event the day of the Uvalde shooting. That's the guy we want to hear talk about empathy and prayers, thoughts and prayers. These people have no empathy. They have no moral compass. They're despicable. They're disgusting. Yes, my heart goes out to all these victims. It's horrible. They should have been warned. But Donald Trump wants to blame Joe Biden. He wants to bring up Joe Biden. Every single time there's a natural disaster, they want to blame Gavin Newsom for the fires in California. They wanted to blame Joe Biden for the fires in Hawaii. But if it's under Donald Trump's watch, can't be his fault. Don't make it political.